Hello, nice to have you join us on the news at 5, coming to you from Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Dominic Iwiwa, and these are the stories and reports we're tracking at the moment. Tension has erupted in Jos just hours after the Plateau State's government eased the 48-hour curfew imposed following the deadly Sunday night attack in Angoin Rukaba. Reports indicate that sporadic violence broke out in parts of the city, with unconfirmed claims of fresh casualties. The situation has triggered panic among residents, forcing traders who had earlier resumed business activities to abandon their shops and flee to safety. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of confusion as people scampered for cover amid fears of renewed attacks. Security presence is said to be increasing in affected areas, although authorities are yet to officially confirm the latest developments. The curfew was initially imposed to restore calm after the early killings, and this fresh unrest raises concerns about the fragile security situation in the state. Authorities are urging residents to remain calm and vigilant as efforts continue to restore order. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency and the United States Drug Enforcement Administration have expressed commitment to strengthening existing partnerships to counter the operations of drug cartels and disseminate their capacity to fund and fuel other organized crimes such as violent extremism and terrorism. This was emphasized by the leadership of the NDLEA and the DEA during a bilateral strategic counter-narcotics workshop held at the NDLEA headquarters in Abuja. According to the chairman of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, the workshop is both strategic and timely as global drug problem continues to evolve in complexity and scale.
The purpose of this workshop is both strategic and timely. It is to align law enforcement leadership from Nigeria and the United States on the most significant drug-related threats affecting our two countries, as well as the wider international community. Distinguished participants, the global drug problem continues to evolve in complexity and scale. Of particular concern is the well-established nexus between illicit drug trafficking and terrorism. Drug proceeds have become a major source of financing for terrorist networks and violent extremist groups around the world. This dangerous linkage, rightly described by the United States as narco-terrorism, poses a grave threat to global peace, security, and stability. The proceeds from the poison sold on our streets are the same funds that are used to purchase the weapons that destabilize our regions. By attacking the drug trade, we are simultaneously starving the engines of terrorism.
Now to legal matters, Justice Peter Kekemeke of the Federal Capital Territory High Court has vacated a bench warrant it issued on March 26 for the arrest of the People's Democratic Party leader, Tanimu Turaki. Justice Kekemeke vacated the arrest warrant while ruling on an oral application by counsel to Mr. Turaki, Chris Uche, following his appearance in court. When the case was called, Mr. Uche apologized to the court for his absence on the last date. Mr. Uche, who claimed to be out of the country, said he returned earlier this Wednesday and headed straight to the court. He also apologized on behalf of his client, who he said is a senior advocate and has the highest regards for the court. He said Mr. Turaki's absence on the last date was not intentional and deliberate, adding that he never intended to disrespect the court. Mr. Uche said to show good faith, he would withdraw the motion on notice filed by his client for stay of execution of the arrest warrant. Responding counsel for the prosecution, Usman Rabiu, said he was not opposed to Mr. Uche's applications. Mr. Rabiu noted that the essence of the arrest warrant was to compel the defendants to appear in court. ruling, Justice Kekemeke noted that the defendant attended the court on his own before the arrest warrants could be executed. The judge, who also noted that Mr. Turaki's lawyer has apologized for his absence, however, decided to pardon the defendant and proceeded to vacate the arrest warrant. Justice Kekemeke also struck out a motion on notice filed by Mr. Turaki and subsequently adjourned to April 22nd for Mr. Turaki's arraignment on a one-count charge by the Inspector General of Police. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has insisted on the retrial of former Governor of Jigawa State, Sule Lamido, his sons, and several others by the former trial judge, Justice Ijoma Ojukwu. Counsel for the EFCC, Chile Okoroma, told Justice Peter Lifu of the Federal High Court in Abuja that the Commission is still awaiting the response of the Chief Judge, Justice John Tosho, to its request. He said on the last adjourned date, the court was informed about a letter written to the CJ seeking a fiat for Justice Ojukwu, who is in Calabar Division of the court, to conclude the matter as directed by the Apex Court, then appealed for an adjournment to await the official communication of the CJ. Counsel to the defendants, Joe Aggie, did not oppose Mr. Okoroma's application. Justice Peter Lifu adjourned the matter until April the 30th for rearrangement of further proceedings. Staying with legal matters, the Federal High Court sitting in Kaduna State has fixed April 14, 2026 to deliver its ruling on the bail application filed by former governor of the state, Nasir El-Rufai. Mr. El-Rufai is currently facing legal proceedings over allegations of financial misconduct and abuse of office brought against him by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. Ahead of the 2027 general elections, the Senate has directed the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to immediately restore Ukum 2 and Konshisha 2 state constituencies of Benue State in compliance with the judgments of the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal had ruled that the 2 state constituencies be restored. The resolution of the Senate was on the heels of a motion by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Anti-Corruption and Financial Crime, Senator Emmanuel Udende, which drew attention to the fact that the Court of Appeal sat in Makurdi, the Benue State capital, and delivered the judgment on December 5, 2025, but without implementation by INEC.
That the Court of Appeal sitting in Makurdi in a subsisting judgment on the 5th of December 2025, and which has not been appealed, restored the recognized constituencies in Benue State. Cognizance that the constituencies relevant to this motion restored by the judgment of Ukum 1, Afia State constituency, and Konshisha 2, Shangai State constituency. I praise that the Court of Appeal granted all the relief sought, for one of which was that defendant is ordered to conduct elections in Ukum 1, that is Afia, in bracket, and Konshisha 2, Shangai constituencies of Benue State into Benue State House Assembly. Mindful that the removal and merger of this constituency resulting in democratic exclusion, population imbalance, and underrepresentation of the distinct communities within Benue State. Convinced that the judgment of the Court of Appeal represents a reaffirmation of constitutional supremacy, judicial authority, and democratic rights of the people. Concerned that the delay or failure by INEC to implement the judgment would undermine the constitutional order, public confidence in democratic institutions.
The National Emergency Management Agency says it is activating proactive multi-sectoral preparedness measures to mitigate the potential impacts of flood this year. The Director General of the agency, Mrs. Zubaida Umar, made the announcement at a technical session on the 2026 flood preparation in Abuja. She adds that the agency is working with relevant stakeholders to strengthen early warning systems, enhance interagency coordination, and ensure timely response to climate-related risks. Our correspondent Benny Ark reports.
It's that time of the year when most part of the country witnesses rainfall. According to the 2026 seasonal climate prediction from the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, above normal rainfall is expected in 8 states including Lagos and Rivers State. The agency predicts that the flood will come with extreme climate conditions, including flood. The outlook also indicates temperature variations and climate patterns that could significantly impact agriculture, infrastructure, and public health. Though the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency has not issued the 2026 annual flood outlook, the National Emergency Management Agency is taking active steps to ensure multi-sectoral preparedness to mitigate potential flood impact. The meeting also featured the presentation of an after-action review aimed at assessing past responses to flooding and other climate-induced disasters.
In recent years, Nigeria has continued to experience increasing impacts of climate variability, particularly flooding, which has affected lives, livelihoods, infrastructure, and national development efforts. These experiences have consistently highlighted gaps in coordination, preparedness, and early action. The presentation of the after-action review today is therefore critical. It provides an opportunity to reflect on past responses, identify systemic gaps, and ensure that our approach going forward is informed by practical experience and lessons learned.
The NIMET outlook also highlights 9 states with a high possibility of flooding, including Kebbi, Jigawa, and Adamawa, particularly along major river basins and floodplains. In a bid to address these projections, key stakeholders, including humanitarian partners, security agencies, and development organizations, are developing the coordinated preparedness strategies.
It is expected that stakeholders will critically examine the implications of the SCP and translate them into specific preparedness measures. I wish to emphasize that preparedness must be proactive, not reactive. It requires timely planning, clear rules, and strong coordination across all relevant sectors and levels of government.
The deliberations continue behind closed doors with a focus on translating climate information into early, coordinated actions that will minimize risk, strengthen response capacity, and safeguard vulnerable communities across the country. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
In Akwa Ibom State, rural communities, once defined by poor road access and limited economic activity, are beginning to experience change as ongoing road projects open up new possibilities for movement and trade. From Nsit Atai to Okbobo, Oron, and Eket, residents say the impact of the road projects is improving their rural economies and easing daily activities.
For years, residents of Ikorakpaepo in Eket local government area say movement in and out of their community was a major challenge. The 2.4-kilometer Ikorakpaepo road, which connects 4 villages, was once difficult to navigate, limiting access to markets and slowing economic activities. Today, with the construction nearing completion, residents say the road is restoring ease of movement and reviving trade.
It's a big relief. It's a big relief. So it was a very, very good news for us. And of course, with the expectation in the last, 2 or 3 years, we were expecting it. We were so expectant that, of course, that Udom should complete the road and so that we should have a good road.
Before now, the bike or motor or cars cannot pass through here because it's always dangerous to come in here in the evening. And secondly, people from the other side of Una, that is close to Ikorakpaepo, cannot come to Ubodenyang and sell because of the bad route. But now they can come in freely and go back freely.
In Ikodaswa, in Sedatai local government area, the story is familiar. The 14.5-kilometer road, which links communities to Okobo local government areas, was nearly impassable. Expansion of the road into a dual carriageway makes travel easier, safer, and faster for residents.
The construction is not yet done, but by the special grace, it will be done. So the state government have tried. They have tried, but we still need more. Mostly something like light and other things, and others like water. In this community, there is no stream again because of the construction.
But even as these communities adjust to new possibilities, residents say more still needs to be done.
We thank him for the numerous projects, and we will continue to ask more because we're still having our health center waiting by the side of the road there.
While the projects form part of the broader rural development drive by Governor Umoeno, the real impact lies in how these roads link isolated communities, strengthening livelihoods, and gradually reviving local economies that were once forgotten.
The Lagos State government has secured the backing of the 57 local government and local council development area chairmen for the reintroduced monthly environmental sanitation exercise. The commitment was reached at a strategic meeting between selected members of the State Executive Council and the council chairman at the Alausa Central Business District, Ikeja. The State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, said the collaboration between the state and local governments was crucial to achieving a cleaner, flood-free and sustainable environment.
Barely 2 weeks after the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, reintroduced the monthly environmental sanitation exercise in Mushin area of Lagos, the State Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, in collaboration with the Ministry of Local Government Chieftaincy Affairs and Rural Development, is engaging chairmen of all local government areas and local council development areas across the state on strategies to successfully implement the voluntary monthly cleanup exercise.
One of the things we've noticed that actually made us say that let us reenact this environmental sanitation is the fact that our people have become lackadaisical in terms of solid waste management, in terms of keeping their environment clean. And it is our duty to ensure that we carry everyone along.
Yes, we know we generate about 14,000 tons a day. It's becoming a major challenge in respect to how we dispose the waste, how we cut them away. The polluter pay policy where tenements are meant to also pay. So with all these challenges, there's only one question. We can't raise our hands and give up and say to ourselves, let it continue the way it is. So if that is agreed, we as a government also say to one another, we must bring back a culture. It's about the culture.
Some of the local government chairmen expressed concern over the indiscriminate dumping of refuse confronting the state, attributed to absence of effective enforcement measures.
I engage about 60 OPC because dumping of refuse on the street is at a rampant something. So I engage them. So they were able to arrest about 20 culprits. So, and we called task force to come over. But said they are at Ikorodu. So we have nowhere to keep them.
I have to also mention that PSP operators, to be fair and to be honest, I don't think they have the capacity to take care of the waste within our communities. And that's the truth. They are unable to carry out the day-to-day logistics of going around and picking up the waste. So people are paying, and some of them have said they won't pay anymore because they won't come and pick up the waste.
Responding to the issues raised, the Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources and the state lawmaker in attendance says an environmental offender cannot be kept in police custody, and government is already responding to the issues in Olusosun and Igondo dump site.
We have an agreement where they will turn our waste into wealth. So invariably it means if these are the things they will pick up, we won't drop this on a landfill anymore. We will recycle and take all the recoverable materials from this.
Honorable Attorney General is coming up with what offenses will be. Because when you spoke about making arrests on Saturdays, I was like, what is the offense that somebody will be arrested for? We need to know that.
This meeting with chairman of Conference 57 is expected to strengthen grassroots participation for the success of the reintroduced monthly environmental sanitation that will help achieve a cleaner and healthier Lagos.
On business news, the Central Bank of Nigeria has reported that the composite PMI stood at 53.2 in March 2026, indicating the 16th consecutive month of growth in economic activity. For the sectors, industry and manufacturing sustained expansion at 54.0 points, while services was slower at 52.0 points, and agriculture was steady at 52.8 points. Other key indicators show that output index is higher at 55.6 points. New orders index recorded increased demand at 53.1. Employment index at 52.1 shows there was more hiring activity, as well as rising stock with inventories at 53.1, while supplier delivery performance at 56.3 shows sustained supply chain responsiveness. Meanwhile, the CBN has directed domestic lenders, payment service banks, microfinance banks, fintechs, and other financial institutions to submit detailed reports on their cybersecurity frameworks within 3 weeks. A statement issued by the Apex Bank says the deployment of a cybersecurity self-assessment tool to evaluate institutions' resilience to cyber risk aims to strengthen oversight and safeguard the financial system against rising digital threats. The directive requires that all submissions reflect data as at December 31, 2025, and must be accompanied by supporting documentation where applicable. The financial market regulator mentions that access to the submission portal and detailed guidelines would be provided to chief information security officers and relevant officials of the affected institutions. As Nigeria and 52 other African countries count down to the implementation of zero tariff policy on 100% on imports on May 1, 2026, Channels Television has held a special forum in conjunction with CGTN with conversations on how to improve relations between both countries. The Ogun State Chairman of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and Managing Director of Coleman Wires and Cables, Mr. George Onafowokon, shared how manufacturers can deepen the relationship.
Economic growth versus environment.
What we've seen differential over the years is that there's been a large scale of Chinese firms coming into the play, but also there have been large scale of Chinese manufacturing companies coming into play to assist or to create businesses in collaboration with Nigerians, being able to, if you're talking about Dangote cement, you were talking about some of the other refineries that have had to use Chinese technology, manufacturing know-how to actually implement these projects in Nigeria. For the long term and the long run, is what we need to see is that the collaboration should move away from just technology, manufacturing capacity to transfer. And that is where we see it moving a bit more into, rather than the old way of doing things where the Chinese companies come as a cluster and stay as a cluster.
The Chinese business community also agree that a closer look at knowledge transfer is necessary.
Bring those young talents, Nigeria, get well training in China and bring them back to Nigeria. So the technology transfer is mean not just we put our Chinese high skilled technician managing, and also we are more using this training to build the young talents.
It's really a matter of modernization. And in the modern terms, the modernization is supported by industrialization and urbanization. So they are the twins that push forward for modernization. And for industrialization, you need two basic conditions. One is the infrastructure development. The other is adequate energy supply. So from the Chinese, the experience, the chief architect of opening and reform, Deng Xiaoping said in a very plain but a very effective way, said if you really wanted to get rich, you got to expand your reach.
And that's it on the news at 5 on Channels Television. For updates, kindly visit our website. That's www.channelstelevision.com. Up next is The World Today.